There is a new action RPG in town, straight from the sun. It is Solar Purge. Shoot your way through dozens of monsters in this early access game. But the question is it any good? Hey everyone, this is Thyworm and today I will give my first impressions on Solar Purge, an indie early access title from Hitscan Games, which is a reference to a common mechanic used in shooters to calculate the trajectory and hits of guns, just so you know. For more random and useless info, consider subscribing. Hitscan is an indie studio based in Dallas, Texas, and this is their first Steam game, and as is often the case, it is a passion project. Hitscan Games was founded in 2015, and in 2017 the first iteration of Solar Purge was shown in Irving, Texas at the Let's Play Expo. Now, 3 years later, it launches into Steam Early Access. Let's get some of the technicalities out of the way first. Solar Purge is rather bare bones when it comes to options. Not only options actually, but we'll get to that. It's got a few resolution settings. It supports up to 4K 16:9 and 1440p 21:9. There is no 32:9 support at the moment, which is perfectly understandable from an indie studio perspective, but as I happen to have a screen like that, I will include it in the videos. Graphics options barely exist. There are generic quality settings, 3 anti-aliasing options, and that's about it. Solar Purge is a top-down twin-stick shooter, which you can play solo or couch co-op using Steam's remote play functionality. The game currently features a single game mode called the Holo Chamber, which consists of 2 zones or biomes, which are procedurally generated and feature their own population of enemies. The point of the Holo Chamber is to reach the highest floors possible. There is no end to this either. The number of floors are infinite and they get harder the higher you get. Each biome you choose has one boss, and that's always the same boss. There's the caldera platforms, which looks a bit like some sort of futuristic oil drill on top of a volcano, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't, but who knows what they'll be mining in the future. The creatures are mostly robotic, and the boss is a flying saucer or spaceship of sorts, shooting lasers and different guns. The second biome is the jungle ruins, filled by organic creatures. It is a jungle alright, with a bunch of beasts and traps too. The boss is some sort of giant wolf, clawing and gnawing away at you while you are avoiding poison traps at the same time. You can choose from 4 classes. There's the engineer, who can summon bots, turrets and drones to assist you in battle. There's the striker, who has a very advanced suit on which you can put all sorts of weapons, like an auto turret on your shoulder. It reminded me a bit of Iron Man gadgets. There's the assassin, who is more of a melee focused character and has various melee abilities. And finally there is the juggernaut, who is a tank of the bunch, definitely a meaty guy, and he has various shields and buffs to sustain heavy amounts of damage. All the weapons in the game aren't locked to any of the classes. You do have starting weapons based on your class, but any class can equip anything, so that is a nice feature. Inside the biome, your goal is always the same. You need to complete objectives, get to 100% level completion, and once you've done that, by either killing monsters, looting chests, or completing side quests, you get teleported to the boss room, where your final fight of that floor commences. The more floors you complete, the longer it takes to reach 100% completion. There are 3 types of side quests on each biome, depicted by the colorful arrows on your mini-map. Green is a looter quest, where you need to find a treasure chest, which usually contains decent loot. Blue is a collection quest, where you need to collect items from slain monsters, and red is a kill quest, where you need to kill a bunch of monsters. These side quests provide significant XP. After finishing the floor objective, it is boss time. The bosses have a few mechanics, and depending on the difficulty you choose, can be quite challenging. A pretty massive drawback, at least for me, is the lack of boss variety. There are currently only 2 bosses in the game, and whenever you pick a biome, you play that biome for your entire run, which means that once you reach floor 30, you have fought the same boss in that run 30 times. I never reached floor 30 because I was simply too bored to continue. And that is my biggest gripe with this game, but I'll explain that soon in more detail. There are 5 difficulty settings, and I played on normal, hard, extreme and brutal. I would choose either hard or extreme for a decent challenge for future playthroughs. Brutal is exactly what you think it is, actually brutal. In my experience, it's also rather tough getting through the first floors in particular, as you don't really get any loot and therefore don't really get much stronger until you reach like the 5th floor. From there, things get considerably easier. Talking about loot, there's quite some stuff to pick up. You have a primary and secondary weapon, or a normal and heavy weapon. The regular weapons are assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, pistols and even bows. Secondary weapons are flamethrowers, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, sniper rifles and light machine guns. Each type of weapon has a few subclasses which determine their behavior. There are shotguns that fire slugs, basically making them more useful at ranged enemies. enemies, and there are your regular shotguns with a close and frontal cone attack, obliterating everybody in the near vicinity. Weapons have several tiers with colors you will recognize from other action RPGs, ranging from white, green, blue, purple, and exotic. There are a bunch of modifiers you can roll on those weapons, such as increased magazine size, increased reloading speed, increased damage, accuracy, crit chance, you name it. Next to a small arsenal of weapons, you have your own skills based on your class. You start the game with 3 skill points, which you can invest in any of the skills. Skills have 3 levels, and every time you want to level up a skill, the cost increases. You can buy skill points just as you can buy ammo, health, and a few other things. A minor setback here is the clunky menu you have to use to get through the skills and items, which was clearly designed for a console and doesn't take into account people are using mice these days. It's a little buggy, but nothing game breaking for sure, and I'm positive this will be a lot more intuitive as the game progresses. You should by now have a pretty decent idea of what Solar Purge is about, as most of the stuff described above is a pretty objective description of what the game is. Now, let me give you my personal thoughts on this title so far. First off, I have been playing Solar Purge since Alpha, and back then, which is half a year ago or something, I got a key from the devs. Thanks developers, it's always appreciated. Since Alpha, the game showed promise. I have featured it a few times in weekly roundups, and it has improved quite a bit. The results are now on display for everyone to enjoy. But is it enjoyable? Well, I would say that really depends on the type of gamer you are. First of all, this is not really a loot-driven action RPG. There's loot, sure, and it's rather important, but it's not really part of the core gameplay loop. Solar Purge is much more a twin-stick shooter with couch co-op fun and with a lot of player skill involved, as is often the case with twin-stick shooters. This game is really about survival, about using your skills at the correct time, about the challenges and about playing with friends. It also means that on PC you move around with WASD movement. Yes, sound the alarm, ladies and gentlemen, WASD movement, which I know is a deal breaker for some of you, so be warned. Also, you currently cannot rebind any keys. That's a little problematic even for me, and I'm a pretty casual dude about all this, but I really like my map bound to my 4th mouse button, so I don't have to move my hand and press M. Minor details to some, game breaking to others, just letting you know here. Mostly though, this game reminded me of another title I've played quite a bit. Solar Purge is a game that is very comparable to Kill Squad, both in terms of setting, visuals, movement, and overall feel. It is, however, also a lot less fleshed out than Kill Squad, and more expensive. Solar Purge isn't really a game for me, I will easily admit that. I am much more into games with a build progression, with loot progression, with a story. Currently, none of these things really exist within Solar Purge, just like they don't really exist within Kill Squad. However, that game, Kill Squad, still appeals to me because I can join a few random people with Troy, shoot my way through the levels, get some interesting boss fights, fulfill a few contracts, which progresses my character, which progresses the missions available to me, and overall I feel I'm actually getting somewhere. Kill Squad these days has quite a lot to offer, and it's come a long way. It's come far enough for me to enjoy it. Solar Purge is basically Kill Squad, but then they're at least 1 year behind in terms of development, if not more. That's not to say I didn't enjoy Solar Purge, because I did, just not for very long. Given the fact this isn't my favorite type of action RPG due to the style, and given the fact that in terms of content in particular this game is very bare bones, I'm getting bored with this rather quickly. You, on the other hand, may find enjoyment in progressing through the floors. If you like arena settings in games like Last Epoch, you may like this too. To me, arena is super boring, because numbers and leaderboards mean nothing to me. And the holo chamber in Solar Purge is no different to me, because I really can't be bothered to fight the same monsters and the same boss over and over again for 30 floors in a row, with the only difference is that I'm getting a little bit better loot and the enemies become a bit stronger. I've streamed the game 2 days ago for around 2 hours, reached floor 20, probably could have gone for another 20 floors, but honestly I couldn't be bothered playing the same level over and over again with the same boss, the same tactics and the same strategy. To me, that is just not fun. There's currently no way to save your runs either, like you can with the monolith in Last Epoch for example. So I ended up in this weird conundrum where I don't want to keep progressing, but quitting kind of feels bad as well because my last 2 hours are basically wasted, as you get nothing out of it like you would in a roguelike game or in the form of something you can work on outside of the holo chamber. I will say though that Solar Purge has some serious potential. Let me explain. First of all, the game runs pretty well on 1440p in both 16:9 and 21:9 on the highest settings. There are very few games made in Unreal Engine that I have issues with, and Solar Purge is no exception. I had a few frame drops when it got a little busy on screen, but overall it was very solid. In other words, Unreal Engine good. I also really dig the aesthetic in this game. It's minimalistic for sure, as there really aren't all that many environmental elements in the levels. It's like a Japanese designed living room where you're wondering where the actual furniture went. But it's effective, like the Japanese are, because the monsters really pop off the screen and it allows you to easily spot the enemy and react. Something else that Solar Purge totally nailed is the combat. It feels very impactful and visceral to me. That is super important in action RPGs because I want to feel the weapons and the bullets and the exploding enemies. And when I launch an artillery strike from outer space and it kills half the screen, it should feel like a very satisfying thing to do. And in Solar Purge, that is definitely the case. As a result, using your abilities makes you feel strong and powerful. In that same regard, the weapons are very meaty and well done. The guns are just wonderful to use, and walking around with a shotgun unleashing hell on a bunch of aliens is once again very satisfying. A heavy contributor to this are the sounds of said guns, and those sounds are masterfully crafted. They really pack a punch. They blow shit out of the water. It's super fun to use the various items and see the enemies splatter into pieces in front of you. On top of that, the game features a very eclectic synthwave soundtrack that is both riveting, futuristic and fitting for the scene. It's composed by Marty Miners, who I really never heard of, but hats off to these amazing tracks that remind me of movies like Tron and Blade Runner and somehow of German minimal techno. There he is, with his dog Boba Fett. During heated battles, the music intensifies as if it increases the decibels based on the number of monsters on screen. It's a bug, I heard later on, but it still sounded pretty good. Boss battles are elevated by these tunes, and cutting your way through the bosses is an audible treat, ladies and gentlemen. I feel Solar Purge has a strong foundation, a solid core on which they can build. If they stay true to their twin-stick shooter design based around player skill and abilities and leave the RPG part mostly behind for now, I think this game can be tailored towards that sort of audience, and I'm sure for that particular audience this can be an excellent game. I've already seen some streamers go pretty ham on brutal difficulty, trying to figure out optimal pathing within the zones, figuring out the correct modifiers and just optimizing everything in order to survive brutal. If you are that kind of player, you're going to enjoy yourself with this game. If you're not, and you're more like me, you are going to be needing a lot more from Solar Purge. Which leaves us with a little dilemma now, doesn't it? What is the target audience here? I know a lot of people think they represent a majority, just like 80% of people think they're above average intelligence, but I do feel I'm representing a more casual action RPG style player on this channel, which is the majority of players in any genre, also known as the filthy casual. And with that in mind, let's talk about what is missing for me. What's mostly lacking and severely lacking is content and variety. 2 biomes to me become boring rather quickly, and I honestly can't see myself playing this for more than a day or two in its current state. And I'm not sure how much more the game will be extended by playing co-op, as also there you're doing the same level over and over and over again. I would still get bored. In order to appeal to a larger audience, I feel the game requires a lot more features, but I'm not sure it's a good idea to go that route. I don't think this game is supposed to appeal to me and that more casual audience in that sense, but rather that it has a niche market that I can definitely see, but I'm simply not a part of. The couch co-op skill-based twin-stick shooter niche market that just enjoys this sort of gameplay. There may not be that many of them, but if you can make a game that is perfect to that audience, you could get pretty far. I honestly don't think that as a small indie studio you can appeal to both. Maybe Hitscan Games proves me wrong, time will tell. Whatever the case may be, this is going to be a tough design decision on the developers' end going forward, and I'm curious which path they will take. The game is in early access and there is stuff planned, of course. Solar Purge will be in early access for about 1 year, and we get more features like a campaign mode, 3 new planets or biomes, a space station hub where players can gather, I assume, and more holo chamber modes. I feel there's a lot of work to be done still. The devs acknowledge that as well, and it's completely up to you if you want to already buy into this game. The potential is certainly there, the content not so much. I hope I've given you a decent understanding of what Solar Purge is about, so you can make an informed decision about your purchase. I'll be keeping you guys up to date on the progress of Solar Purge. You can follow me on twitch.tv/Thyworm and ask your questions while I'm streaming, or drop a comment down below and I will try my best to help you out. I hope you enjoyed the video, ladies and gents. Thanks so much for watching and making it to the end. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.